Okay, today I'm going to be going through the process of painting this little Danish hut. I don't know if it's on a beach or a lakeside, to be honest. Behind here we've got some water and then a sky, so it's just on the edge of a water. So I'm going to start with, well, I'll show you, I've got 3 brushes today. I've got the big brush for covering the sky area, so that's a number 12. You can't really see, it's quite worn out. That's a 12, and then I'm going to use a number 8 and a number 4, just to various different sizes, smaller one for the details. Okay, so I'm going to start with doing the sky. So for the sky I'm going to mix up some cerulean blue, the lighter blue. I'll try and make sure you can see what I'm mixing here. I'm going to mix up quite a lot of that. Trying to reach around for it. Okay. So we're going to put on a biggish wash of blue. Work quite quickly because you don't want areas to dry and go patchy. Okay, so I've got it quite vibrantly blue. And I'm just going to finish it as a sort of a rough edge around there. Just a bit of water, just rinsing the brush with just some water on there just to blend it down to the horizon so it's not quite so blue. Oh yeah, so that's why I've used the bigger brush, just to cover the area more quickly. There as well. Right, whilst it's still wet, I've got a piece of kitchen towel and I'm just going to blot out some areas where I'd like some cloud shapes. I'll take a bit more from down here because as it gets towards the horizon it gets lighter and more vibrantly blue at the top. Push on quite hard, but keeping the tissue quite rough because you want the clouds to look quite organic in the shape. Okay, and to get a bit more contrast with the blue against the clouds, I'll try a little bit of this cobalt blue and just drop a bit of that in, not too much, make sure it's dropping into wet. I'm just going to put that on the top, so say as the sky goes higher it gets darker, sort of more vibrant blue. I'll try a little bit more of the cerulean as well. And then just a touch of Payne's grey. You can see it's very diluted. Not too much on the brush, just want to drag a bit. Just create a bit of shadow underneath those clouds. Right, that'll do. I'll let that bit dry. So whilst that's drying, I'm going to put in a wash of green for the grass. So I'm going to go some sap green and a bit of yellow ochre because it's a more sort of dry grassy green. I'll make sure a little bit more of that. This is quite a big area, you just want to mix up plenty. I'm just going in that whole area of the vegetation with that layer. Going a little bit more. You don't want it too thin. Oops. Just do the whole area. Oh, leaving the step because that's some wood there. That whole area where there's plants, we're going to go in with the green. And again, just leave a rough border at the bottom. Okay, right, let that dry as well. I think it's got two big areas. I'm going to use the hairdryer. Mostly want it dry around here, so I'm going to do the roof next. And just see, I can zoom in, you can see that really nice texture here. That's like different variation of blues. Right, let's get back again. So for the next bit, I'm going to do the roof, which is like a felted roof. So I'm going to go with Payne's Grey. Make sure you've got plenty again for this, a biggish area. And actually I might use a bit of this ivory black as well. I'm just going to cover the whole area. In the same way as with the sky, I want to keep it wet, keep plenty on your brush. If your brush ever starts to feel like it's getting dry on the paper, make sure you load it back up with some paint. Okay, keep plenty on there. Okay. So once that's wet, you can use the same technique again with the sky, some kitchen roll, and just keep it quite random. You don't want to take all the paint off, you just want sort of patches. And then quickly, whilst it's dry, I'm going to go in with a smaller brush. Well, this is the number 8. Yeah. And get some thicker black and drop that in on the patches that are wet. Just wet enough. So you want it to blend, you don't want it to... See, that's quite dry there, so I'm not going to worry too much. I want it to bleed quite nicely. Because if you see the felt texture on the photo, just add a bit of water in there to help it bleed a bit more. It's you don't want it too flat. It's just got a bit of texture on the felt. Right, just take a little bit out there. I'm going to leave it at that. This feels dry now. So for the hut itself, we're going to go with a slightly purpley blue. So I'm going to try a bit of this ultramarine. So more of a cooler blue. It's got a hint of purple in there already. Again, mix up plenty for biggish area. See what other colour to drop in with that. Maybe a touch of Payne's Grey. Right, let's go with that. So I'm going to go for the whole area, leaving the white frames of the window. Again, I'm using plenty on my brush. So I'm not feeling particularly talkative today because I've got a bit of a sore throat. Hoping it doesn't turn into more than that. But then less talking might be better for everybody. Okay, so I'm just going around the window frame and also the door frame, the white door frame there. Oh, that's a bit wet. You see it's bleeding. Not that it's a problem particularly. So we've got a bit of colour pooling there, which I quite like because it's creating a bit of texture within that blue. If you go with an even coat of, or even layer of paint, it can dry very flat. The more texture you can get, the better it looks. And hopefully this is a reasonably straightforward image that we're going to be using next week for our February class. Okay, so everything on here is blue but from around the frame and the actual sign. Finding I didn't mix enough up. I'm not doing this one live this time, this video, which is probably why I'm not talking so much. I didn't realise with the live video I did the other week on TikTok, it doesn't stay there, so you can't look back at it. Okay, well it's the blue for the hut, paintwork on the hut dries. I'm going to mix up a bit more paint grey for the windows. On the bottom of the windows there's a bit of reflection or just a warmth glow from inside, so a little bit of yellow ochre. Oh, it's quite thick. Okay, and then on the bottom panes I'm just going to put in, it'd be better if I use the smaller brush probably as well, because this is the number 4. So I'm not going to paint the curtains. Okay, so just take it up halfway. Quite a lot in there, so I'm going to bring that over here as well. Just going to let that not fully dry, but just have a little bit longer. Right, then see if this works. With the Payne's grey, going for the top, leaving the curtains again. I probably will need to go over this again when it's dry, just to get it a bit darker. But for now, I'll just try one layer. Right, so in theory, some black here. I'm just going to let it blend down. Oops. And a little bit more. I want it to be a bit darker, but also a bit of warmth. Come over the frame there a bit, don't worry. Before that dries, let's just put a bit in here. Go. You just see it's getting a nice glow from the on the inside. Okay. This is still wet, but a bit darker. Okay, get a nice contrast there with the white frame. Okay. Right, now I'm going to come back, as that dries, I'm going to come back to the grassy area. Go back in with a bit of sort of a yellow ochre and sap green. And can add just an extra layer here to start building up some shadows. Okay, so there's definitely a shadow underneath the hut. That's going to eventually turn to a much more blacky brown. Build it in those layers. So there's a bit of light. The shadow's not obvious on this one, but it's sort of from behind really. So these top bits will be catching a bit of light. A little bit here, not so much. And then definitely these bits behind will be in shadow. And actually underneath the step is grassy as well. Earthy. Okay. Right. So next bit I'm going to go in with some sea colour. It's blue, quite a turquoisey blue. So some cerulean mixed with a touch of this hooker's green. Try that. Yeah, that's quite a nice turquoisey colour. I'm just going along that horizon line and then bring it down, diluting it a bit so it just fades out. Same on this side. And again, rinse the brush, just some water then, just to pull that colour down. And then here it's a bit sort of like a beachy part, gravelly, kind of rocky seaweed, and put a mix of some ochres, keep it quite rough. So I've just dropped a bit of ochre and Payne's grey in there just to fill in the gap really more than anything. It's kind of hard to describe, but there is in the photo you can see there is like a bit of a duckboard thing here, but I'm just taking that bit out, simplifying the image. And getting a bit of yellow ochre and a bit of Payne's grey. And I'll put a little bit more in there when it's dried. Okay, let that dry a bit more. I might put a tiny bit darker on the horizon, but I don't want it to do that yet because it'll end up sort of bleeding all the way down. Okay, I'm going to use the hairdryer for a minute. Okay, so the blue of the hut looks quite flat at the moment, so I'm going to go back in and just add in, just seeing how I can add in a bit of texture. I'm going to use some of the ultramarine and Payne's grey. It's just a very grey blue. I'm just going to They sort of feather in a bit of darker patches kind of randomly. It's very subtle. I know, might need more. But there isn't anything that obvious with the texture, but there is texture there, but there's nothing dead obvious between the contrasts. Probably muttering now, not really making any sense, but I guess it's that sort of faded patina of the paint that you're trying to capture a bit of. I'm sort of dragging the brush over the paper more than anything. And hopefully that just takes that flatness out of it. Go a bit darker on the, well, a bit heavier on the colour, but I'm also going to just dab it off so it doesn't come too thick. Ooh, it's quite thick and quite dark. A bit more blue. In the picture it looks a bit darker sort of on the bottom bits here. Okay, try that. I'm going to put some shadows in from where the roof overhangs as well in a moment, let that dry. Okay, well, that seems to work. I'm looking at the screen now, that seems to give that much more textural appearance to it. Okay, so I'll give that a minute to dry, and I think what I'm going to do actually in that same technique, take a bit of Payne's grey, just dry it a bit, and then what I don't want it to do is paint on too smoothly. Perhaps just need it, so I want it to be quite dry on the brush. It needs to be thicker. I'm just going to see if I can drag that over to give a bit more texture. If you drag it over, you see it just catches the texture of the paper, so it's not a completely flat brush stroke you get there. I'm going to go a bit of a warmer blue, warmer black, so that's the ivory black there. A bit drier. Ah, see, that's too wet, and you get a very much a brush stroke look on it. Just try and disguise that. Again, that's a bit wet. That's better. Hopefully that's coming across on the video what I'm doing there. Dragging it across and just creating more texture. Okay. Right, let that dry. So use a smaller brush. As long as that's dry, which I think it probably is pretty much because it was just dragged across. And use some black just to get the edge there. Oops, the way now. Okay, so we need something on the curtains, and I'm going to go a bluey black, just watered down, just to give it a little bit of shadow. I'll do some stronger shadows as well in a minute, but you don't want it to be completely white. Okay, I can do a bit of black and yellow ochre whilst that bit's dry now for the step. More yellow ochre. bit of that on. Let's try a little bit of this bluey black along the horizon. And then just some tiny bits where the waves and sort of water's catching. A bit more down here. Just a little detail really. Using the smaller brush again. Alright, we go with number 8. I'm going to mix up some shadows now, which I quite like it when they are a Payne's grey and a blue, just very subtly blue. There we go. But I want it to be dark enough that it's going to show up a shadow on the blue of the hut. Let's go a bit thicker. Right, let me just try that. I'm going to imagine that this roof is casting a shadow onto the hut below. Let me just see. I'm going to bring it down to about here. So on the photo it's not that defined, but I'm going to go in a bit more with mine. So the shadow comes down to there. See that? It will dry lighter, but I think I'm getting a good enough contrast there, so I'll just make sure I might just mix up a bit more of that. Okay, go all the way across. I'm not going to do the white at the minute, I'm not sure with that. I might go for a lesser blue. So thinking where that line comes across here. The sharper the contrast you can get between the light and the dark there, the more sunny the picture will look. Which I know the picture isn't that sunny, but it's always nice to make it more sunny. So I'm going to go with a bit of shadow. I'm going to imagine there's a little bit of light coming from this way as well, so there's definitely going to be a bit of shadow there under that frame, and a little bit down this side of the window. And again, there'll be a bit down this side of the door cast from that bit of white frame. And then under the sign, that'll be a bit darker there. And there. And a bit of shadow here. And then the same for this window underneath. Down the side. A little shadow cast from this greenery. Okay, that's that done. So next I will do a little bit of texture on this sort of beachy part. Bring my image back. The screen's turned off. Well, there's a little bit of green there, seaweed or something, and then the other bits are sort of browny black rocky seaweedy bits. There we go. Just using the tip of the brush and keeping it quite loose. Okay. Going again with a little bit more a darker green, smaller brush. Some sap green, but mixed in with some Payne's grey. A bit of ochre in there as well. So these are the sort of the shadows that's sort of being cast between the leaves there. This is definitely going to be dark. So it's underneath the hut. That's looking nicer now with some shadows, some darker elements there. Because there will be quite a bit of texture in the grass itself as well. Use the bigger brush, a tiny bit of that on there, and just dab it or even drag it. Don't do brush strokes, that's the main thing. Okay. Do. Right, bit of hair drying. I actually think I'm going to go darker, like I thought I probably would, with the black in the window, which might mean also another layer of yellow ochre as well. Start with this bit. Yellow ochre. Get that black out on it just to be nice. Clean sort of yellow ochre. So I'm doing the same as I did first time round, just another layer which just brings a bit more vibrancy to the yellow and a bit darker to the black. There we go, let that bleed down again. There's quite a lot of paint there, so it's going to sit on it rather than blend in. That dry a touch more. Right, let's do a much stronger contrast of the windows now, which is I prefer. Right, another layer of the shadow under here, because that's pretty much black right underneath. Do something with this stone, the rock, in a minute. Darker blacky green, some more shadows in there. And there. Okay, one thing we'll do if I just find some scrap of paper. Let's try that one. So I'm just going to hold that there. That's to mix up a bit more green and splat that on for the texture of the grass. And do that. I'm just doing it with my finger and tapping it down. Obviously you can put it against your finger or against a pen and tap it, but just while I'm holding this here, I'm just going to, so it doesn't go on the rest of the painting. Right, that'll do. I've got some splatters up there, look. Get them rather wet. Okay. Head right. So smaller brush and a slightly blacky blue, but a little less blue this time for the shadows. And I'm going to put some, well, put some shadow on here to start. It's got a bit dark. I'm going to take that off actually. It's too blue because it looks too much like the painted part of the hut. Might go a little bit of ochre in there actually, so it's a very warm black. There we go, that's better. And this is in the shadow. A little bit on here. And then with the frames itself, there'll be a little bit of shadow there. Maybe not on that side. And a little bit there. Tiny bit on there. And then I'm going to go back. Oh, I'm going to dry that actually. Put a bit of shadow on the curtains. I'm going to go more with the bluey black this time. So if we've got a bit of shadow being cast from the frame, there we go, got this bit here. So that's that bit of frame shadow onto there. And then the same on this side. Oops, it's very dark. Okay. About there really. Just think with that stone. And then try a little bit of this light red, quite dry, to drag that across, give that a bit of texture on that wooden step. Ochre in there. I think that's about it really. Yeah. If you have got an old sort of rubbishy brush, which I have plenty of, and I keep hold of them all, so hoard these things and find it. This one, just a cheap brush, but I've cut it so it's really untidy and tatty on there, and you can put a bit of green onto that sort of brush you can add more texture with, just to build up that, and maybe a bit of so you're not getting brush strokes as such, you're just getting texture. Let's go for a bit more green, but you want to keep it dryish So the bristles are really untidy like that rather than neat. Make bristles rubbishy and untidy. And then do it subtle, but just brings up a little bit of texture there. It's too thick. Okay. So I think that's about it really. Let's go a little bit darker on some of these bits here. Such rocky bits. There we go. And here's the finished hut up close. I mean, there is opportunity to put in quite a bit more detail if you wanted to, but it's in the simplest form. It's an illustration. Here we go.